On a stormy night back in 1971, a man hijacked a Boeing 727, collected a huge ransom, and then just parachuted into the vast wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. He was never seen again. This is the incredible story of D.B. Cooper, the man behind the only unsolved air piracy case in all of American history.
This quote from the FBI really captures the heart of the mystery perfectly. From the very moment he vanished, Cooper became more legend than man. He was like a ghost who pulled off this incredibly audacious crime and just disappeared. So our story really kicks off on the afternoon of November 24th, 1971. A man walks into Portland International Airport, and in doing so, he sets in motion this chain of events that would end up baffling investigators for decades to come. What's so remarkable is just how calm it all was. He boards the plane, he orders a drink, he smokes a cigarette, and then he just hands a note to a flight attendant. For 2 hours, the plane circled Seattle, while authorities on the ground were scrambling to meet his demands. Once they landed and the exchange was made, the plane took off again, but this time it was flying into pure uncertainty. He just calmly informed the flight attendant of the threat, and to prove he was serious, he opened his briefcase just enough for her to see what looked like 8 red sticks of dynamite, all wired to a battery. There was no panic, no shouting, just this quiet, terrifying threat.
So this is a crucial point, just how specific his demands were. Not just money, but a particular kind of money. And not just one parachute, but 4 of them. Now this was a calculated move. It was meant to suggest he might take a hostage with him, which would prevent the authorities from trying to sabotage the chutes. It was a simple but absolutely brilliant piece of psychological manipulation.
Okay, so with the ransom money secured and all the passengers released, the second part of his plan began. And this is where the story goes from a simple hijacking to a true legend, as the plane took off for a destination that, well, even Cooper himself seemed a little unsure of.
Now, these instructions were not random at all. This specific flight configuration slowed the plane down to its absolute minimum possible speed, which would make a parachute jump feasible, though still incredibly dangerous. It really showed that Cooper wasn't just some random criminal. He had specific technical knowledge of the Boeing 727.
Cooper told the remaining crew members to go into the cockpit and not to be disturbed. And that was it. That was the last anyone ever saw of him. A short time later, the crew felt this distinct change in air pressure, a vibration through the whole fuselage, and they knew, without a doubt, he was gone. He had jumped out of the back of a commercial airliner into a freezing rainstorm.
As soon as the plane landed safely in Reno, one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history kicked off. But here's the question. Where do you even start looking for a man who literally fell out of the sky? The FBI swarmed the plane, but Cooper, he left almost nothing behind. A tie, some cigarette butts, and 2 of the parachutes he didn't end up using. He was even smart enough to take back the handwritten ransom note, denying investigators a key piece of evidence. All they had were these tiny fragments. And the search area itself was just a nightmare. We're talking about a massive stretch of dense, rugged wilderness, blanketed in forest, and just getting hammered by terrible weather. The military, the FBI, local volunteers, they all searched for weeks. They found nothing. Not a parachute, not a briefcase, and not a body.
For nearly a decade, the case went completely cold. And then, in 1980, a chance discovery by a little boy, it reignited the entire investigation.
An 8-year-old boy, his name was Brian Ingram, was digging a fire pit on this sandy beach along the Columbia River when he found 3 decaying bundles of cash. The FBI checked the serial numbers, and it was a perfect match to Cooper's ransom money. After 9 long years, this was the first, and as it turns out, the only piece of the ransom ever recovered.
In this discovery, it actually created an even bigger puzzle. The beach, which was known as Tina Bar, was miles away from the FBI's estimated drop zone. It just didn't make any sense.
You see, every explanation for how that money got there just leads to more questions. Did it float down a river? Well, that's pretty unlikely, given the river's flow and the fact that the rubber bands were still intact. That suggests that someone buried it there. But who? And why just a tiny fraction of the money? Instead of solving the case, this discovery only made the mystery even deeper. So, with the money trail going cold all over again, the debate really shifted to the central question: did D.B. Cooper actually survive his impossible jump?
The arguments are compelling on both sides.
On the one hand, jumping into a sub-zero storm at 10,000 feet at night wearing a business suit, it just seems like a suicide mission. But on the other hand, no body was ever found, no missing person ever matched his description. And the money being found where it was, that strongly points to some kind of human intervention.
And you know, for all of his apparent expertise, he made some really strange mistakes. He was given two primary parachutes, a modern civilian one and an older military one. He chose the older, inferior one. And what's even more puzzling, he also took a non-functional training parachute that had been sewn shut, which apparently he didn't even notice. So was he an expert, or was he just lucky?
Over the years, thousands of suspects have been investigated, but not a single one has ever been a perfect fit. From copycat hijackers like Richard McCoy, to former paratroopers like Robert Rackstraw, and even men who made deathbed confessions like Dwayne Weber, for every piece of evidence that seems to point to a suspect, there's another piece that rules them out.
So then, in 2016, after 45 years of dead ends, false leads, and frustratingly little evidence, the FBI announced they were no longer actively investigating the D.B. Cooper case. They concluded that the resources would just be better used on other priorities, leaving the file open but inactive.
Ultimately, we are left with this one single, haunting question. Was D.B. Cooper a brilliant folk hero who somehow pulled off the perfect crime and lived out his days in quiet anonymity? Or was he a reckless amateur whose luck just ran out the moment he leaped from that plane, his remains lost forever to the wilderness? We may never know.